A gun is the great equalizer, especially for women. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms for your NRA certification and multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below. And let's talk about this. I came across this very interesting interview with the president of the CCDL, which is the gun rights group here in Connecticut. It was Holly Sullivan, where she talked about women and their ability to procure a firearm, specifically more from the point of view of the state of Connecticut. But she makes a good point that when women become the subject of a threat, especially from a man, the police usually don't recommend that they arm themselves. But I'm going to go ahead and play that interview, and then we'll come back.
Welcome back to America's Voice Live. I'm Terrence Bates. Well, here's a question to consider. Not many in leadership positions are even asking this, but here it is. Why aren't stalked women told to get a gun for self-defense? That's the title of an article that was written by Dr. John Lott and my next guest, Holly Sullivan. But why? The authors indicate that 76% of women murdered by an intimate partner were stalked, but the advice that they typically get isn't to get a gun, rather to change jobs, maybe even change their travel routes, or even move. With me now to discuss is one of the authors, as I said in that article, Holly Sullivan. Holly, so good to see you. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get to the basic question, the fundamental question here. Why? Why not get a gun? Why are people being told, oh, move, change your life?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of organizations out there that purport to stand for women's protection and women's rights. But at the end of the day, those are groups that are generally not on the side of law-abiding gun owners and may not know that much about law-abiding gun ownership. So it's just simply a conversation that I don't think is happening that should be happening.
It seems to me that gun ownership, though, is just part of the equation. It's just part of the conversation. It may very well be a key and fundamental part, but it is just a piece.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, you know, consistently, we see that women that have stalkers go through very similar things. They might ask for help from the police department. They ask for help from protective organizations. And simply at the end of the day, when these moments happen, you can't predict it. You don't get to choose the time or place that you're going to be attacked. And very often these women are left defenseless if they were not given that education.
While these women may not be encouraged to buy guns, do you see, have you found that there's a reason why many of them don't seek it even without the encouragement, just on their own?
So coming from a state like Connecticut, I can say that it's not something that you necessarily talk about very often. Here in the Northeast, we're in what I would call hostile territory sometimes when it comes to gun ownership. And it might just be a cultural thing. It also just might be where they're getting their information. So, you know, there's a lot of groups out there. There are fantastic organizations out there to educate women and to try to help them get the education in advance. But if they don't know to seek it out, they're not getting that information often, I would say, at least certainly not here in the Northeast, from their police departments, even letting them know that it's a possibility. And then further, if they wanted to get a firearm in a state like Connecticut, it takes an extremely long period of time and it costs an awful lot of money. So that also may dissuade a woman who might want a quick solution, but won't be able to get it due to the legislative process.
I get that there may be an urgency for people in really serious situations to get a gun. But isn't it a good idea to make sure that we're vetting people properly? And that's not to say that we're dissuading people or we're putting up major obstacles for people to get gun ownership. But don't we want to make sure the right people have guns? Isn't that reasonable?
So I think that's there's certainly a reasonable argument there for permitting, and certainly in Connecticut, we don't have anything other than a pretty strenuous process. So here in our state, and part of the context of this article is that there was a woman who was murdered here in Connecticut very recently in a town that is notorious for being past the state statutes on issuing permits. And I'm not saying she applied for a permit. I don't know if she had or had not. But here in a state like ours, and it's very similar in other states like New York or California, Delaware, other places where gun ownership might not be an everyday conversation. In our state, you have to get your training done first, and then it becomes an up to 8-week process for your local municipality to issue a temporary permit. That temporary permit does not actually allow you to buy a firearm or ammunition, and you've just waited 8 weeks for it. And then after that, you still have to go to the state police, pay more money, and then get your actual permit to carry. And that's the first time that you can purchase a firearm or ammunition. So we're talking a minimum of 2.5 months. And some women just don't have that sort of time.
So it sounds like what you're saying is this is just unrealistically, they make it just too difficult for you. They make it unreasonably difficult.
They do. They absolutely do. And there's no way to expedite it. So there's no avenue for a woman to say, go to the police department and say, I'm having this problem. Is there anything that I can do to make this go faster? There's just absolutely no remedy for them.
You talked a little bit earlier about there being groups out there to kind of help women navigate through some of these very deep and difficult waters. Give us an example of where people might be able to get information. There may be someone out there in a similar situation to what you described, looking for answers. Where can they go to seek those answers, or at least to get a head start?
Yeah, absolutely. So almost every state has an advocacy group, such as the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. Look for your state 2A organization. But also there's groups out there like A Girl and a Gun, as well as the DC Project. DC Project fights for women's rights, whereas A Girl and a Gun really does the hands-on training. So certainly just hit Google, get out there, find out what's in your state. There's chapters and organizations in every state, and there's definitely opportunities for women to be educated.
Holly Sullivan, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for the information.
Thank you.
Heard that and you saw that. Now, the interviewer made a point of saying, shouldn't we vet people to make sure that people who aren't supposed to have firearms don't have them? And that's, you know, it's an absolutely valid point. But what happens with those situations is that people who aren't criminals tend to get sucked into a system of basically abuse. As you noticed, she pointed out that it takes somewhere up to 2 months to be approved for a firearm. So this woman has a threat against her life. She applies for a permit. She's got a whole 2 months of worrying about the person who's giving, who's bringing the threat to her, while she waits for this approval process to go through. Ladies, I'm going to make this clear. Don't buy into the garbage that you are as strong as a man, you can do everything a man can do. No, sorry. That's just biological reality. If a criminal is out to do like a carjacking or something along those lines, and let's just put it in perspective. They see two potential targets. They see me, 6'3", 240 pounds, and they see you. Who do you think they're going to choose as an easy target? Because most criminals are cowards, and they take the easy path. A firearm is the equalizer in that situation. I am a big proponent of everyone, every law-abiding citizen, being able to arm themselves. Because once the criminal element starts to realize that the odds of them getting killed, potentially, in their actions, will make them think twice about doing it. And especially for you ladies out there. Now, there's the biggest growing demographic of gun owners over 2022 was women, specifically black women. And I think that's the best thing in the world. We need people to be armed. We need people to start, because you are the first line of defense in any given situation. So go out there, train. Learn how to use your firearm proficiently, because a piece of paper is not going to stop violence coming to you. Great interview and great points. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're notified the next time a video goes live. I will see you on the next one. Peace.